And everything that you need for the convention that we have so far is on our website. And I am trying to pull that up really quickly.
You want me to drop it in the chat?
If you could, that would be great.
Thank
you. So the workbook is still being edited, and we will have that as soon as we can. But everything that we have so far is on the website on the convention tab. And one of those items is the convention rules and procedures. And we will read these at the convention so that everyone hears them. They do change slightly in between events, but this will be our ground rules for what happens at the convention. The first rule is only accredited delegates representing local leagues of the state, members at large, and this is an asterisk, an interleague organization and LWV-VA board members may vote. And the reason that the MALs is an asterisk is that's going to be a bylaws change, that if that's adopted, then MAL, and MAL is members at large, that MAL delegate will, they'll start out as observers, and if we pass the bylaw, then they will become delegates. And if anyone has a question, let's first of all see if you can find your hand raise feature. So for me, it's under reactions down at the bottom. There's a little smiley face on the left at the bottom. It says reactions. And if I click on there, raise hand is at the bottom. Oh, good. I'm seeing people raise their hands, and you need to know where this is. And that is in the workbook. I don't know if we have it on the website yet. And we could certainly add it there if needed. If you're having troubles finding yours, please shout out or put it into the chat. But if you're on a iPad, it's in the upper right. Is that correct, Joan?
Yes.
I don't have an iPad. Celeste, I can see reactions, but can't see hand raised. So another place you can look, and it depends on which version you have. If you click on participants and you find yourself and you click on more, it might be there. And if you're on the phone, that's going to affect. So if you're on the phone, we think that *9 will get you a hand raise.
Yeah, I actually tried it when we were in session and it did work.
And Celeste says it's an option under more, so good. Is there anyone else who has not found where their hand raise feature is yet? Okay, great. Then you can click on it again or do the opposite of what you did to raise it. And it's very important because we're going to use the hand raise feature a lot in order to vote or to be recognized at the convention. And I am not following the chat so well, so let me see if there is nothing in there so far. I don't think that hasn't been addressed. And some people still have their hands raised. Is that because you have a question or you just haven't put your hand down? I think you're working through it. The next thing is that only accredited delegates, and if you don't know if you're a delegate or not, you should have been approached by your local league representative, whether that's the president or someone like that would have asked you to be a delegate. And that's how you would know that you're a delegate. We also invite observers to come to our convention. When there's a debate, no person shall speak more than once on a motion unless all others who wish to speak have done so. No person shall speak more than once on the same motion, and debate shall be limited to 2 minutes per speaker unless other procedural limits take precedence. Judith, do you have your hand raised because you have a question? Okay, I think not. And Joan, let me go ahead and make you a co-host so you can help me lower hands if I can find you. Okay. The other thing is Pat, I saw Pat Evers, I saw you were here. Let me find you and pin you. There you go. There is Pat. So Pat has a clock for us that, whoops, I highlighted the wrong person.
I'm still working with how to get this to work, so I'm glad we're doing this, but I think I.
Oh, it's great.
Well, no, this is Deb's timer. I didn't find this. You gotta give kudos to her. She found it. I'm just trying to make it work.
So it's a 30-second timer, and that will help keep us
that's
on
cool.
time, hopefully. And it's not, if we can keep Pat pinned up in the corner, everyone can see her and they will have an idea of when they're down to 30 seconds.
Oh, okay.
And they will also see when their time is up.
So Deb, I'm just gonna ask a question here.
Mhm.
Just because from my perspective, I just want to make sure what you all are seeing. So as I understand it, once someone starts to speak, I'll start my timer on my phone. And when they get down to the 30 seconds, that's when I'm going to hit the start timer, or actually I'm doing like start video. And is that what's showing up? So then that's what everybody will be seeing? I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay.
We don't see you anymore. We see the timer counting down.
Gotcha. And then when it gets to, I'll let it count down. So when it gets to times up, as you suggested, I'll leave it up there for a couple of seconds. It kind of flashes, I think.
It does. That was the way we made. It was because it's a long story, but yes, it's a glitch in how it was created.
Okay. So I'll let it flash maybe 3 times and then take it down, and then
Perfect.
kind of up to someone else, I guess, to stop them from talking.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I appreciate that, Pat. Hopefully that will keep us on track. So no one will see the person speaking during the last 30 seconds. Carolyn, did it take over your screen? Because for me, I have it on gallery view and she is just pinned up in my left corner. Did everyone else have that experience where it took over your entire screen?
Yeah,
Like best friend. Yeah, but I had it on speaker view.
Gotcha. Okay.
Oh.
So I will make a note to remind everyone to be in
It'd be like a
gallery
phone
view.
call.
okay, so I can just see.
And probably the first thing I should remind everybody, although I think we haven't gotten to this one yet, but there is a rule about muting. And so a reminder to everyone that you should be muted unless you've been recognized to speak. And Alice, I see you have your hand up.
Right. I just have a question about that timeout thing. So if you have, if you only have 2 minutes to speak, you're saying that you're going to have this timeout like taking up the whole screen pretty much?
No, it depends on your view. If you have your view, your window is set for speaker view, then it's going to take over your screen. But if you have it set to gallery, then you will just see it. Like for me, it's just pinned up in my corner.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Sydney, you have a question?
I understand. This timer going to only do for 2 minutes, as I understood that I have 3 minutes to do the presentation that I have to do.
It's just going to do the last 30 seconds. So that will just be your 30-second notice.
So I don't see it until the 30 seconds comes up.
Correct.
Okay, Deb, I have a question.
Sure.
So my understanding was, well, I thought it was the timing came in more when it was motions on the floor. So how will I know whether somebody has 3 minutes or 2 minutes? Because I thought they were all 2 minutes.
Sure. Let's get together on that offline and we'll work through that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Are there any other questions so far? Okay, great. So mostly the debate will come up whenever there's a motion and a vote. On Saturday, there will be some motions, but we won't vote until Sunday. And I will try to state that when we get to that part of the meeting on Saturday. Number 4, speakers shall use the virtual hand raise when called on, announce their names and their leagues when addressing the convention. And we should probably practice that here out as well, so that we're a big state, we don't all know each other, and it helps us to put names and faces together. So if you have another question, if you would please state your name and your league, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Number 5, only motions and amendments to motions will be written in the chat box on Zoom, with the exception of points of order. And we had to include points of order because those are interrupting motions. And there will also be a page on parliamentary procedures and motions in the workbook that will help parse out all of those minutiae. But a point of order is an interrupting motion, and if we have everybody raising their hand to speak or have a point of order, it's not always clear. And so we thought if that's allowed into the chat box, then we'll know which ones. And right, Joan says a point of order is, Joan, do you want to expound on what you've put in the chat?
No, I think you just have to write point of order, please, and
Yeah.
you don't have to say what the whole point of order is at that point. Just put that in chat, and then Deb will recognize you for your point of order.
And the other thing that Joan brought up there is that just because you've indicated that you have a point of order, you do have to wait to be recognized to speak. Carolyn?
Carolyn Kaywood, League of Women Voters of Southampton Roads. If I wanted to make a motion, would I paste the motion into chat?
You will. And if it's a motion that you know that you would like to make in advance, if you would give it to us in advance. Some of these motions we will have in advance, and Janet Boyd will share her screen. If we were in person, we would have hopefully have some sort of screen that we would project the motion so that everyone can see it. But in a virtual setting, we'll use a screen share so that everyone can see what the motion is that's being made. And I saw a question about Martha. I'll let you unmute and do the protocol thing and ask your question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Martha Stewart, Southampton Roads. What is a point of order? I mean, a definition of a point of order.
Right. That's if you think that someone has made a motion that is not at the proper time or the proper sort of thing, that it's not. And I can't think what would be a good example. And perhaps someone here can help me. Judy, you have one?
I think one might be if, like, an observer, I've seen this happen at another convention, if one of the observers who's not a delegate starts to speak, somebody else could say point of order.
And Joan, you have an example as well?
Yes, Joan Portley to Women Voters of Arlington. Yeah, we're telling the people who are watching the debates that, say someone speaks twice and goes to speak again, and you don't catch it, they can come up and say, point of order, so-and-so has already spoken twice on this motion.
Thank you. And we do have people that are helping to keep track of that, but this is going to be tricky. I mean, we're on 2 screens right now, and if everybody shows up, I think we're on 5 screens of faces. And so it's a brave new world for us. And Carolyn, did you had one to add as well?
If somebody amends a motion, we're supposed to be discussing that amendment. And that thing I've often seen happen is people forget and start talking about the main motion instead of the amendment. So that would be a moment to do point of order.
Yep.
Please.
Thank you. And if this is your first convention, don't get wigged out about all of this talk about parliamentary procedure. It's really to help things flow and to make sure that everyone gets an equal opportunity to speak. And so it's not something to be intimidated by. And it's unfortunate that this is one of the biggest challenges of being in a virtual setting, is that you can't ask the person next to you, what's going on and what does that mean? And so if you do have questions like that, we do have a couple people that we can point you to help answer those questions. So I think Martha has offered to be one, and I can't remember who the other person.
Ann Sharp down there.
Ann Sharp,
who's actually right next to Martha. That's...
Oh, not online.
Ah.
So let me make a note of that again. Are there any other questions right now before we go on? So Carolyn asked if you can private chat to ask your questions, and yes, you can. The reason that we're trying to preserve the chat for just motions and convention business, and I don't know if I've gotten to this question yet or this rule yet, but that is so that we don't have convention business going off on the side in the chat. We want to make sure that everything is, done in a orderly manner according to the program that you'll have with you. And speaking of program, the league uses program in a whole bunch of different ways. So it could be an event, it could be your workbook, and it could be the studies that we do. And sometimes those are also the positions and studies are referred to as program. And so that can be extremely confusing. And I'm going to try to remember to say workbook when I mean workbook, but sometimes you're going to hear program used in different ways. Will this chat be saved and sent on the Zoom? We can save the chat. We're going to post this recording on the website, again, on that convention tab, and we could post the chat there as well. I think that we are on number 5. Only motions and amendments. Nope, we did that one. That was the point of order. 6, copies of the credential reports will be filed with the secretary. And that's really just a bookkeeping note. But what the credentials committee does is we're asking everyone to start arriving on Zoom around 8 a.m. on Saturday and on Sunday. That gives our people who would be at the check-in table time to get you checked in. They will note whether you're a delegate or an observer. And you will also be here in plenty of time to hear our speakers. We have one at 8:30 each morning, and we think that they're going to be we know that they're very good, and we think that you're not going to want to miss them. And so that's why we request that you're here early. And the credentials report will, they'll track if we have a quorum. So do we have enough people? Are they from, how many leagues are they from? And all of those sort of things that we want to know, so that we have that for our elections committee that will help tally the votes. Number 7, refer to bylaws for the quorum. And in our bylaws, Article 7, Section 6, 30% of the possible number of voting delegates other than members of the state board shall constitute a quorum, provided that a majority of local leagues are represented. So we have 14 local leagues currently, and majority doesn't mean half. So if we have 7, that's not a majority, we'll need 8. And you don't need to worry about that. That's what our credentials committee is getting the big dollars for. But just so that you have that information and you understand how that's being figured out. Number 8, after approval of the Readers Committee, the minutes '21. And what the Readers Committee does is the board secretary will take the minutes, just like a regular meeting. I am pausing because it told me my internet was unstable and I didn't know if I would be making sense. So our secretary will be taking the minutes, and when she's done with those, she will share those with the 3 people who have agreed to serve on the Readers Committee. They will offer any edits, and then that will come to the board. And that is to make the deadline is on there just to make sure that those are handled in a timely manner while it's fresh in everybody's mind about what happened. And was there anything else there I needed to see? Okay. The voting procedures during plenary. And if plenary is an unfamiliar term to you, it basically means the business meeting. So we'll have parts of the convention that are outside of the business meeting, but in the convention, we usually refer to the business part as plenary. And if we were in person, you would get to be walking all over a beautiful hotel to your different workshops and caucuses. Because we're virtual, we're stretching our caucuses out throughout the week, just like National did. That seemed to work very well. Last night, we had the caucus for the recommended programs. And if you didn't get to tune in, the recording has been uploaded to the website. And I have one set of slides that I haven't gotten up there yet, but the other 3 are. And so if you have questions about what you might have missed, those are there. So the voting procedures during plenary sessions will use the hand raise feature. The Elections Committee is responsible for reporting the result to the president. And so this would be a good time to take a vote. And let me quickly, if you are on the Elections Committee, please raise your hand because I see Carol, but I don't know if there are others here. And I will make them co-hosts so we can practice this in for real. Oh, thank you. There's Sharon. Okay, great. So my question to you today is, do you like hot weather? If you like hot weather, raise your hand. Voting seems to have slowed. I will give you a countdown of 5 to get your vote in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So thank you. And you can lower your hand, or we will lower your hand. And then I will ask for the opposite, but wait for everyone's hands to be lowered. So if you do not like hot weather, please raise your hand. And you have, I will give a countdown of 5 to get your vote in. 5. Oh, this says some people are using the thumbs up. You cannot use the thumbs up because that is a fleeting way to signify your reaction or your vote. And so that's why we're doing the raised hand. And if you need help finding your raised hand, and the no won't work either. We can't use the yes or no. We did a practice vote and we found that depending perhaps on your device, perhaps on your version of Zoom, but if the participants used a yes or no vote, or if they used a thumbs up, those were fleeting. And by the time we would get everybody's vote count, votes counted, their response wasn't always obvious. So please use the hand raise feature so that your vote will be counted. And now the Elections Committee will respond with the tallies that they got. And because we're using a recorded vote, the secretary will record the yeses and nos. So we had 19 yes and 20 no. And you 20 no people, I don't know who you are, but I can't agree with you. I love this hot weather.
Excuse me, point of order. Karen is saying she only has thumbs up and not the raised hand.
Carol does.
Karen Rosenberg.
Somebody
Karen,
else,
President Blum, sorry.
Karen,
somebody else said, wait.
okay, hold on, Lois. Let's get to Karen first.
Yeah, Deb, in my possible reactions, I got the smiley faces, the thumbs up, the clap, and the heart. That's it.
If you click on participants and more, do you see it there?
I looked under.
Wait, when you go to you for more.
I'll check it out.
Okay.
I'll look at the participants.
And Peggy put a note in here. You may need to upgrade. We're going to ask everyone to make sure your Zoom is upgraded to the latest version. May have something to do with that.
I found it. I'm fine.
Upgrade to your version to the latest.
And this is our
Give
fear.
a thumbs up.
Deb, you froze. We missed what you said.
That's what I thought. I thought you guys were, I thought you were frozen, Joan, but it was me. So how do you, am I unfrozen? Super. There was a question about how you raise your hand, and you can click on your hand. It's kind of hard to answer some of these questions because everybody has a different device and a different version of Zoom. And that's also why we do these orientations, to try to work through these problems. So, Jean, you have a question?
No, I can't.
Oh, you can't get it down?
No, I can't see it because the record icon is directly over my hand. I thought that I put it down.
Okay.
Is it down now?
It's down now. Sorry about
Okay. Okay, thanks.
that. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions right now? Okay, then we'll keep going. Number 10, only announcements that relate to the business of the convention or the welfare of the participants shall be made. Announcements shall be made only by persons designated to do so. Number 11, all attendees shall be muted unless recognized to speak during plenary, workshops, and caucuses. And this is so that we're not distracted by barking dogs or traffic and all of that. And we can hear everything that's going on. Number 12, refer to the bylaws for program adoption, Article 10, Section 3. And this is where it talks about how we do program planning. And this is our studies and positions. So first of all, this may be a repeat for many members, but in case this is new to you, in order to do advocacy, we need to have a position on the topic. We'll choose gun violence prevention. And if we don't have a position on it, then we can't do the advocacy on it. Now, the local leagues can use positions from the local level, the state level, or the national level. And at the state level, we can also do the state or the national. And the way that you get a position is through study. And we engage in studies every 2 years at the state level. These are statewide studies, and we use them then for our advocacy efforts. So A, LWV-VA committees and task force, local league boards, and voting members of LWV-VA may make recommendations for new studies for new issues for study, amendment or elimination of current LWV-VA positions, or concurrence with a new support position. Recommendations must be submitted to the state board at least 3 months before convention or council. And if you look on the website, you will see that we have 2 positions that we're going to consider to adopt. And that means that they were approved at our last convention. They went through the 2-year process and they've completed. The local leagues offered their concurrence on what was studied, and those are ready for us to support or not at convention. And they were supported by the board. We don't see any reason that they won't be supported, but that is up to the members to debate when we get to that part of the plenary. You will also see there are recommended programs. There's a tab for those. And those are the new proposed studies that haven't happened yet. There are 4, and you can look at those. We had a caucus on those last night. The recording is on the website for those. And so those are the 4 that are being considered by the delegates. That a yes vote means, yes, we support this study. We're going to put 2 years into this, and then we'll have a position at the end of it that we can use for our advocacy. There are also a number of not recommended studies at the bottom of that list. And they weren't recommended for a number of reasons. And when we get to that part of the plenary, delegates are able to ask, why wasn't this study supported by the board? And the board will answer at that time. And I see I have there's 2 things in chat. Okay, and this is about the bandwidth. Sydney noted, sometimes freezing occurs because the live videos of our faces take a lot of bandwidth. Some of us, so if you're having problems with your bandwidth, you can turn off your video. Are there any questions about how we get started with the programs, the ones that we recommend or don't recommend? Okay. B, any such league board, LWVA study committee, task force, or voting member shall send to the board accompanying background information on the issue proposed for study, concurrence, amendment, or action, including the timing, need, and importance of the study for the issue for study or action, and the rationale for seeking the proposed form of obtaining member agreement. And so that's what we're doing with these caucuses. On Saturday, the completed study committee will stand up and talk about why their study is important and urge your support for Sunday when we take the vote. Same for the recommended programs. The issue group members or the committee members that want to do a 2-year study on that issue, they will get to speak about their study and try to get people to support that on Sunday when they vote. And also, you do have the opportunity to put forward a non-recommended program. Those do take a higher vote because they're not recommended by the board. And so you really have to have a greater amount of support in order to get those to go forward. Are there any questions so far?
Deb.
Yeah.
Martha Stewart with Southampton Roads. How do we easily get to our bylaws?
So those will also be linked in the workbook.
Okay.
And you can find them on the website. And I don't know if there's a handy link in the convention pages, but let me make a note. Oh, thank you, Carolyn. Carolyn has dropped the link in the chat.
But I meant at the convention, right in the middle of the convention, if someone needed to quickly look at their bylaws, how would that be done?
So the 2 pieces that we need, or that I'm covering today, are in the rules. So those will be in your program. If there are others, and I'm trying to think, we are doing some bylaws amendments, but I think just the parts that are pertinent to that are in there. I mean, you could certainly print them out in advance, but that's the disadvantage to being virtual and having everything virtual. We don't have a paper workbook to hand you. Jean, you have a question?
Okay, I'm sorry. The caucus meetings that are held at 7 o'clock on Thursday and Friday on the 2 position papers, what's the purpose of those?
In case you weren't involved in, when your local league reviewed those studies, or maybe you have lingering questions. I know that it was a challenge for the election committee when they were doing their study, because we had so many changes in the laws at the same time that they were trying to update what what our position should be on the laws. Maybe something happened in all of the General Assembly changes that you want to bring up, or see, was that addressed? I can't quite remember. So it's to do all of those. And
The purpose, though, is not to change anything within those position papers. Is that correct?
You do have the opportunity to amend the proposed position that we're going to vote on.
Okay,
I mean,
thank you.
that's part of the debate. Judy? You're still muted.
Yes, but the purpose of the caucus is not to make the changes there. That happens at plenary.
Right.
With an amendment possibly. Yeah.
Right. Jean, did you have another question? No, okay, I got it, I got you. Carol, you have a question?
Yes, the question I had is, when will we have a chance to explore the bylaw changes?
I think those are on the website.
They're on the website and I read them, but I have questions about what different terminology means. And on student, we're now defining student, is that a different dues schedule than regular members? Because it says that anybody 16 years old or older can be a member of the league. So there's clarifying questions that I'm just trying to understand. Will that happen during the plenary session?
I don't think so. Janet, you may want to speak to it, but that was a change that was made by LWV-US. And so that is one of the bylaw changes that we are required to conform our bylaws to theirs.
For the students you're talking about, or the
yes,
at large?
No, the students. That and the DEI were both changes made by national, and those are bylaws that every state and local league their bylaws need to reflect that change as well.
Right, but so how does that affect dues?
That was, Deb,
Janet,
can I answer that?
Please.
This is Janet Boyd from Arlington. On the bylaws, interestingly, our bylaws didn't have any language initially with regard to how much the dues were. So we didn't incorporate the differential. So that will have to just be part of the decision of the board, but it's not integrated into the bylaws at this time. The only bylaw change was actually in the definition of who can be a member.
Okay, so the board may or may not have a different rate for students. Is that right, for our PMP?
It's not incorporated in the bylaws, so that at this point would be a decision of the board.
Okay, and so do we have a charge for students at this point in time? For student members?
This is Joan from Arlington. No, I believe that's part of the change. If you look at what we were required to do by national, part of it is to extend the definition of students, and that there will be no PMP for students. Remember,
I'm sorry, is that true for national as well as for state then?
I guess yes. Right now, well, no, the state can do what they want, but the state is not going there. But
right.
For national, right. And I don't believe it, Janet, you can correct me, you've been working on the bylaws. We are not calling for a PMP on students in these bylaws. Right,
No,
so
not
we're just
calling
right.
for anything. So it's up to
Sorry.
the national overrides anything we could probably really do in this space, because they're the ones that set up
Right.
the new system with regard to students.
In fact, as I'm recalling now from Arlington, when you adopt this, there's also a piece that you have to adopt. It's in your financial, that students will not be charged a PMP. So this is all directive from national.
Oh, okay. All right. So, okay. So if our local league wants to charge a nominal fee for students, then that whole fee is retained by the league. I mean, the local league.
I
You
don't
would
think
have
so.
to,
Yeah,
you'd have to check with national to see if you are allowed to do that. I'm not a bylaw expert, but I was a delegate to the national convention, and I understood that to be, since we have to adopt it in our local bylaws that we are conforming to them, I don't believe we can.
So in other words, students will have free membership throughout the whole cycle. There will be no charge for students.
No charge, right. They did it as a test up until 2020. And then at the 2020 convention, they decided to make it permanent.
Okay. All right. That is very helpful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Now, what about this definition of, what is it? Independent local league. What was that? Bylaw change?
Carol, I think you mean the at-large members?
Yeah. The at-large, no, the
MAL.
So currently, so most people join a local league, and we encourage people to join the local league because a lot of the programming, and here I mean events and ways to get physically engaged, are at the local level. We do have some that choose to join at the state level, whether there's not a local league near them, or perhaps they used to be a member of the local league, but they've for whatever reason they've chosen not to rejoin that local league. They could join whichever, but we have many members at large right now. We refer to them as MALs, and because we have so many, I think we have more than 50 right now, and they're scattered. There may be there's also a minimum number you need to form a local league, and I'm not sure if we have any concentration to get a local league started, but we did feel that there were enough that we wanted them to be able to have representation, because as a group, they're certainly going to have varied interests being across the state. But we felt that it was important that they also have representation at the convention. And so that was the purpose of that bylaw change.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
there's one additional item, Deb. This is Janet from Arlington. And this did come from a terminology change at the national level, and that is, instead of treating these language, the member at large, that used to be a very kind of awkward terminology that was used to describe a sort of an in-between kind of situation where you really weren't a member at large, you weren't part of an actual league, local league. And we're utilizing now the terminology for that in-between, which we don't have right now, but we've incorporated that into the bylaws just in case we get that kind of an organization, and that is the leagues at large.
Okay.
Alice, I'm sorry, you had another question, Carol?
Well, and this is not on the bylaws, but I need help understanding how this works. So on a household membership, if you have two parents or a parent and a teenager, 16-year-old or whatever, the 16-year-old joins under the household membership. Okay, so it's only when they're a college student that they are considered a student.
You should get together with Andrienne and talk about that. The national has defined what a student is, and it was pretty broad, but I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, well, I guess we're trying to get our membership stuff put together for, you know, the new
Gotcha.
membership drive, and so trying to get the terminology and who counts as what is confusing for us. So is that something that somebody at the state can help us with, and who should I contact?
Are you in touch with Andrienne, the membership person from state?
No, so Adrienne, what?
Andrienne Constas Salvetis. I can put you in contact with her.
Thank you, that would be great.
Yep. Okay. Alice?
Yeah, so this is the first I hear about these MALs, these members at large.
Uh-huh.
And I guess my question is, you know, we, in the affordable housing study, we really tried to do a good job of contacting, you know, all the leagues and doing these presentations and make sure everybody had access to the report and blah, blah, blah. And so I just, when you said that you thought you had about, or Janet said you thought you had about 50 members at large, I just got some red flags that went up in my head, you know, mind about, oh my goodness, I missed 50 people educating them about the affordable housing study.
Well, and that's one reason that we thought they should have a say in our you know, governments. Andrienne has been doing the outreach to the MALs, but it's certainly, you've raised a good point.
Yeah, so, you know, like now if you know, if somebody comes to the caucus or, you know, the plenary or whatever and said, well, you know, I'm sorry, but I don't, you know, agree with this. I never had an opportunity to be at a consensus meeting to discuss this. And, you know, I feel bad about that, you know?
Well, I know that you did a whole lot of work trying, I think you personally visited many of the local leagues, and I don't think that, I mean, you've done all that you can, and it just identifies a place where we could do more.
Okay, all right, well, yeah, I think it's a hole that we need to fix.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep. Lois?
So I'm sorry to be, if this is a dead horse I'm beating, but we are keeping the term member at large or not? We are not keeping that term, member at large.
So the current term is member at large unit, or it was actually a league at large unit, or no, it was a unit. What the heck is it? Janet, maybe you can help me, but it's a unit at large or something. And National was using the term league at large. And so it's really just a semantics where it's a word change, and the what it is the same. It's just a better descriptor.
I agree. I never liked that term, but is there's not a different term for a group of people that are close to being a league but haven't made it yet? Is that?
This is Janet from Arlington, just to explain the difference. We do not have any of these in existence yet, but you described it correctly. For those individuals that are almost organized enough to be a local league, we had been calling those in our bylaws as a member at large unit.
Yeah, yeah.
But the National League calls those exact same kind of almost local leagues, they call them leagues at large. And so we've just changed our bylaws to reflect what the National League does.
So leagues at large are groups and individuals?
No, the MALs are separate. The MALs are actually very isolated. They're not close enough together to be treated as a part of a leagues at large.
Right, okay.
So there's differences between the
So
two.
you
We retain the MAL terminology.
That was my question. Okay, thank you.
So you can think of a league at large as a baby league that's not a full league yet.
Right. I like that term. Thank you. That's good.
Lynn?
Did I understand you to say earlier that the after you pass the resolution that the MALs will be voting in this, at this convention?
If that's the will of the body. So we will vote on that.
Including on the studies as well as other.
Yes. So in order to start a convention, you have to first approve the credentials committee the report of the credentials committee that you're agreed on who gets to vote. And then it's the rules of the convention that we all agree that the rules that we're going over right now is the rules that will govern our convention. And then we approve the workbook and that's all of the materials that are provided for the convention. And then the next vote that we will have on Saturday is approving the bylaws. And there's some business in between, or there's some business in between there, but I think that's the next vote. And the reason was so that they will be in place for the votes on all of the other things.
And what is the total number of people you have registered for the convention approximately?
That's a Joan question.
Approximately 160. A little bit less, but 150 actually.
But we don't know how many of those are MALs. I'm just trying to see.
One.
There will only be one or two.
There's right now only one MAL delegate.
I wanted to clarify that. I totally understand where Lynn might be confused on that because we didn't describe. The change is to allow the MALs to have representation somewhat roughly in the same ratio that the local leagues have representation. For example, I think it's for every 25 MALs, they get one accredited delegate. That's the same ratio that each of the local leagues have with their members. So it's not like you're going to be swamped with 40 MALs at all. You get the same, they get the same ratio that the local leagues have.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Joan, I'm sorry, Jane. You're muted.
I think Janet just answered my question about does every MAL get a vote, and the answer is no.
Okay, awesome. Okay. I believe we are at C under the program planning. And the board shall consider all properly submitted recommendations and formulate a proposed program, which shall be sent to the presidents of the local leagues and ILOs and to the chairs of members at large units at least 4 weeks before convention, or if the board recommends the council. Just briefly, an ILO is an interleague organization. And for those of us living in Northern Virginia, that would be the National Capital Area League. And so Loudoun County, Fairfax County, Arlington, Falls Church are the Virginia leagues that are included in that, the DC League, and then Prince George, Frederick, Montgomery County, and Maryland, and then and Howard County as well. And so that's an interleague organization. That's the ILO that this is referring to. We could have others, but currently that's the only one that touches on Virginia. D, the convention or council shall adopt or amend the program proposed by the board by a majority vote of those present and voting. And I will try to tell you that when we're taking the votes, whether it's a majority vote, whether it's a 2/3 or a 3/5 vote, most things are majority. The things that should be harder to change, like it's a not recommended program, they have to get more support. Otherwise, we're just going to be bursting with non-recommended programs. So things like that have a higher threshold to pass. E, the program recommendation properly submitted by the 5 deadline. I think there might be a typo there, but not proposed by the board may be adopted by the convention only if its consideration is ordered by a majority vote of the convention. If the proposal receives approval by 3/5 vote of the convention delegates present and voting at a subsequent session of the same meeting. And so that's what I was just saying, that if on Saturday, the body decides by a 3/5 vote to approve a not recommended program, then that will move to Sunday and be voted on then as well. but that will not be brought up on Sunday. So you will know on Sunday which programs you'll be voting on. Although through debate, they could be amended or altered in some way. So are there any questions to this point? Okay. And then the last rule is to suspend a vote, a 2/3 vote of delegates present is required. And so that means that we're not going to be changing the rules mid-game unless there's a compelling reason to do so. And so that's why that requires a 2/3 support. So what questions remain that we have? And let's, do I want to mention resolutions? I should. So there's also a resolutions tab on the website, and a resolution, there's a sample there you can look at. And if they don't have enough submitted, that may become a real one. That's really up to the committee. But the one that was put forward there as an example is about the witness requirement and why that should be removed. And I don't think I have a printout here handy. But you can look there. You have until there will be some any that are received by the committee will be considered now, and you have until 1:30 on Saturday to submit a resolution. There's a form there, and all the directions are there. You can send a question to that email that's on there if you have questions about the process. But the committee then will meet on Saturday night at 5:30, and that is open to everybody. And especially if you have submitted a resolution, that would be a good time to show up in case they have questions of you. And so and Jean is here. Jean is on the resolutions committee. So some of the things that you might, these are the things that you think are important for the league to support. You know, this should be a priority for the league. And so what other things could it be? It could be about gun violence. It could be, I don't know, like, I'm trying to think what we had at national. Actually, one of the resolutions at the national convention over the summer was one about racial injustice. That one of the leagues brought that forward, that needed to be a priority for the National League, and that did pass. There were 4 or 5, and one that didn't pass was about the Electoral College. And so there are criteria on there for what needs to be met by the resolution. And the reason that the one for the Electoral College didn't pass is it was already something that the National League has come out in support of, but what they wanted was an abolishment of the Electoral College. And because we support the National Popular Vote Compact, MVP, you may have seen that. I got that wrong. Anyway, and that it's sort of a workaround, or it doesn't involve a change in the Constitution. And it doesn't cause the league to have to spend a lot of resources in order to get something that they already support in another way. And so that is a reason that a resolution might not be accepted. But so go and look at that. That's another option for expressing your what you think the state league should be involved in. The other thing is courtesy resolutions. Perhaps someone has passed away this year that you think, and actually they could be alive too, but someone that you think should have received recognition for their contributions to the league. You might submit a courtesy resolution. Those should come to any board member. I think Joan had put her, no, actually membership was in chat. I can put my email in chat. Joan is probably putting hers in chat. You could also use the email that's there for resolutions. You could send it to the info at LWV-VA.org email, and that could get to the board as well. But so courtesy resolutions are just, they're a way to get recognition and thanks. And those do need to get to the board by, I think, Friday at 5. I can't remember what the deadline is. And the board will approve those or consider those. So are there any questions about resolutions? And Alice, you have a question?
Right, but it's not about the resolution.
That's fine.
Sorry. You want me to ask it?
Mhm.
So can you clarify this? So the programs that weren't chosen for study, did you say that someone has to actually ask you about them, or that you are going to describe why the board didn't approve those?
So we won't discuss those unless someone brings it up, and they have to get a second, and then there will be this, and then someone from the board can address why the board chose not to recommend it.
So is there a reason why? It just seems that's not very transparent. I mean, what's the, I mean, I don't know why you all just don't say, well, we didn't have, you know, it didn't rise to that level, or we didn't have a volunteer to run it. I mean, that would be a really good reason for me.
Yeah, it's all those reasons. I mean, there's a myriad of reasons, and if you look at it, it's a big list. And so it's, you know, was it worth taking up everyone's time when we have 4 that we are recommending, which is a tremendous number. So, you know, but if there are concerns or things that are on there that you think should have been, you know, or should be put forward in addition or instead, then that's the time to do it.
No, I mean, I just am saying, you know, not me personally, I think 4 is plenty. So, you know, having gone through it myself, but I was just thinking in really trying to be as transparent as possible, you know, why doesn't the board, you know, could even be just published or something, or can we go to your minutes to find that out? Maybe that's a better way.
I don't think it's in the minutes. And Carol has put forward an example. Oh, she's putting an example of a resolution. So, right, if you see something that was not recommended, but you do think that it should be highlighted or given consideration, but you don't want it to be a study, you could submit a resolution. And Carol put another example of a resolution into the chat. And Carol and I would invite you to submit that to the committee. They are looking for work.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Dee Dee? You're muted.
So what is the purpose of the resolutions? Do they inform future behavior of the league in terms of studies, or what's the point?
They could. So for instance, what was Carolyn's example? So that the league supports the equal legal rights for unmarried life partners. There was something similar to that we did not take up as a recommended resolution. So if you feel that it doesn't really require a study, it's kind of a no-brainer, but you think that the league should make a statement about it and put their support behind it, then that would be an opportunity for a resolution.
But
go ahead.
Ugh.
You're muted again, Dee Dee.
I'm sorry. Is there advocacy rights that come with the league having supported and passed a resolution like there is for studies? At the beginning, you said that in order to do advocacy work, we had to do the study and create a position. Is that the same situation with resolutions?
No, there's not a study component usually to a resolution, but it's more you think that the league should make that a priority. And if you go and look at what the requirements are, it does require that there's the support of a position to back it up. So you can't just you can't circumvent the program process with a resolution. For instance, you think that, you know, if we didn't have same-sex marriage, perhaps, and we didn't have a position for it,
okay,
and you wanted us to do it,
right,
we couldn't do it because we didn't have a position.
we could not advocate.
Right.
We couldn't
well,
lobby.
and you can't.
We couldn't lobby on that position based on simply a resolution. It would have to have been a position from a study.
Right. If we don't have a position on it, you can't make it a league priority because the position is the foundation, and if we don't have a foundation for it, then we can't do it.
I got it. Thank you.
Lynn, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, that was pretty much my question as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Mary?
Yes, I have a question about the distribution of these program items. If we adopt all 4, how do you see them being studied by the local leagues after they've been prepared? Will there be anything available for next fall, or do we have to wait until the next year to get all 4 of them done?
That's a great question. And I think that it will require some coordination. The groups that just finished their studies did not have the benefit of guidelines, and they are currently reviewing guidelines that they wish they had had, and we will have those for the next group. But that is something that we do need to be thoughtful about, is how to help local leagues know what's down the pike and what to expect.
The other question is, will any of these studies be presented to us as a fait accompli, as some of these past studies have been? That the committee makes the resolution and that's what we're going to adopt. And are we going to continue to do that? Or are we going to wait until the items have been studied and the reports sent into the state league, and then the state board determines what the position is, which is how we've done it in the past?
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. Things have changed. I mean, even these issue groups didn't exist when we were doing these, when the studies were started 2 years ago. They were really fledgling, and that may change how the process, and that gives an opportunity. Plus, being able to work virtually gives an opportunity to have better local league input during the body of work instead of just in the end product. So I hear what you're saying. I don't have a good answer for you, but I do think it's something we need to be considerate of.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Judy, do you have your hand raised? You're muted.
Not a question, but just a little practical encouragement that if you are planning to make a presentation, it's a good idea to time yourself according to the time that are in the rules, because it's very easy to run on and on. And I personally, if I was giving the presentation, all that, those things were going down, timing me down, I would get really distracted. So really time yourself ahead of time. And also if you're planning to make a speak to emotion, same thing. Just take a little bit of time to practice it and time yourself. That's helpful to our chair, who's trying to keep track of everything, and our volunteers who are trying to keep track of everything. The other idea I had, because a lot of our delegates are not able to attend these meetings, but if you've heard something today that's really helpful to you, you might pass it on to your other delegates. Like, for example, the discussion and the good questions and answers that we had regarding membership. And that'll save some time during the plenary sessions too, if people have the same information that you do. So just a little bit of practical stuff. Yeah.
Thanks, Judy. Carol, you have a question?
Yes, on the budget. I'm looking at it and I'm reading it that we are on a January 1 to December 31st.
No, it's July 1st to June 30th.
So then why is the budget year labeled only 1 year? I would think it would be FY 2021 to 2022 as opposed to.
I don't have it in front of me, but I will look at that. You're looking at the website?
I'm looking at the website, right? And it doesn't actually state, whether we're a fiscal year from July 1 to June 30th, which is what I assumed we were. But if we are that, then it encompasses 2 years. I mean, not a full 2 years, but it has a piece of 1 year and a piece of another year.
Right. I'll look at that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions before we go? All right, well, if you, oh, Karen, you have a question?
Yeah, it's kind of a general question about how the league operates, Deb. So the question is, this is the specific example. From Janet Boyd's presentation at our annual meeting, what I understood was that the league supported Mamie Locke's legislation to remove, I mean, that felons should not ever lose their voting rights. But that's not actually the current league position. So can you walk me through how you guys make decisions about that?
Sure. So voting is a right. That's one of the basic tenets of the league. You know, we formed out of the right to vote. We support the right to vote for everybody. So it's not about felons voting. It's about everyone has the right to vote. And if it's a right, it should be protected.
Okay. Oh, okay. So that's how you get there. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. All right. Well, then, if you didn't get enough, come back at 7 or shoot an email to info@LWV-VA or to first VP at LWV-VA.org or president at LWV-VA.org or membership at LWV-VA.org. There are others, but we'll direct it to the right person, and we look forward to seeing you at I think the Affordable Housing Caucus is Thursday night at 7. Elections law is Friday night at 7. And bright and early at 8 a.m. on Saturday with bells on. We'll get rolling shortly. So great to see everyone.